Where do we look? Sorry.
Anyway, just
Oh,
there, definitely.
no,
That's right.
sometimes somebody will say, look at here.
Maybe look at this one.
Oh, which one?
That one or the
Yeah.
this one.
The middle one, the one on the tripod, the boat.
Good evening and welcome to the Biotechnologies Africa Digital Think Tank Roundtable. My name is Towela Zulumkosa and I am the CEO of Biotechnologies Africa. The Biotechnologies Africa Digital Think Tank series happens on the last Thursday of every month. This month we're having it early because we didn't want to compete with the elections. We didn't want to compete with audience time because we're having elections in South Africa on the 29th. So we had it a week early, but it usually happens on the last Thursday of every month. What we're trying to do is we're trying to increase and change the narrative of digital transformation in Africa. We've seen a decline in digital transformation initiatives. There was a steady increase around 2020 during COVID, but since then we thought that the increase would be steady, but actually we're noticing a decline. So what this initiative is all about, it's about bringing together industry leaders, digital enthusiasts and experts who are experts in the field of digital transformation, bringing them together so that we can unpack, talk, share knowledge, share insights, so that we can literally see an improvement in digital transformation in Africa. We specifically focus on the African context because we feel that digital transformation initiatives are implemented very differently from the way they are, because we are a continent with a diverse population as well as diverse cultures. We also have macroeconomic challenges such as access to internet, low access to internet, literacy rates are low, as well as infrastructure challenges. So we want to say, regardless of all of this, how can we practically and successfully implement digital transformation initiatives in our organizations? Today is the fourth series in our installment, and we are going to unpack the intricacies between people and technology and how we can bridge the two together so that we can see how we can effectively implement the digital transformation initiative in our organizations. I am joined by a wonderful panel joining with me today. These are experts ranging from PMO experts, change management experts, process improvement experts, human capital transformation experts, and we are just going to have a discussion on how we can really bridge the two between people and technology when it comes to digital transformation. I'll start on my right with the only gentleman tonight. If you can kindly just introduce yourself to our audience, tell us where you're from and what company you're from and your interest in digital transformation.
Thanks to my name is Tim Zapati. I work for myself. My line of work is in health transformation, future of work. Most of my work is around organizational transformation and advising clients on future of work, especially in energy and mining. And ex-Deloitte partner, I've worked in consulting for over 23 years now. My passion is people, leadership and culture is a part of what I do.
Very fitting for today's discussion. Zakia.
Hi, I'm Zakia. I also work for myself. I run an HR consultancy, so end-to-end HR services. I've been in HR for 17 years, some of that in corporate, of course, with the consultancy, and I've worked with a variety of companies over the time. My interest in digital transformation is that there's so much opportunity out there to either improve ourselves as individuals or just to improve how we work or how we engage with across the world.
Awesome, thank you for that, Sophia. And on to another entrepreneur.
So yes, I also work for myself. I'm Antoinette, and I work for Bridging and Associates, and the company does strategy with businesses, but we link strategy to people very strongly because we believe that culture and engagement is what makes strategy work. So we work in the leadership space and we work in the HR space. My background is commercial, process optimization, and then I had quite a busy and extensive stint in HR and business transformation. My excitement about digital was honestly just after COVID. 2020, like you said, there was an increase in digital transformation because it was a must. We had a need and people adopt quicker. And I did some studies afterwards because I see the decline as well. And I think it's about the experience. So my interest is about that experience to the person in this digital journey.
Thank you. And I just want to say that normally we have a mix of panelists who come from academia, private sector, public sector, entrepreneurs and corporate. But today it looks like the entrepreneurs took the stage. But please, Nyankoma, introduce yourself.
Well, hello everybody. My name is Nyankoma Tabane. I am currently employed by Liberty Group, and one of the roles that I fulfill is that I am the chairperson for the Employment Equity Skills Development Forum, which looks at transformation in the company as well as skills development. My regular day job, in addition to that, is I work in the project office and I do insights and reporting for projects. And my interest in digital transformation, I think, to sum it up, I see it as giving power to the people. Now, with a background in tech, a lot of the projects that we deliver is intended to have an impact on both our staff as well as our customers. And we've had a number of digital transformation projects, and I hope to share insights.
Oh, can't wait to hear those insights. But now I feel like the panel is very people focused. And I want to ask the question, one thing first. So I'll rephrase it. What's more important, people or the technology when it comes to digital transformation?
Okay, what I see in my experience is that you have a business strategy. And once you unpack the strategy, the how-to, you have to then understand the various elements. And a lot of the times, the differentiator is technology. So, you have a strategy and the differentiator being technology. Once you have the technology choice made, then you start, connecting the people to that technology. And I believe that that is a fair way of looking at it. Because if you're going to wait to develop your people to get to a range of technologies, it may take a lot longer to transform than if you've made a technology decision and then you align your skills and capabilities to support, run, and leverage that technology.
So you say tech comes first, then the
Strategy, people. Yes.
Would you like to?
I see, thanks Tola, I see technology, we used to see technology as an enabler or a support platform, but I see technology today as a co-worker. So it is all about augmenting the workforce so that humans can focus on what people do better, and then machines can focus on the stuff that we as humans don't like to do anyway. But if you see it as a co-worker, then it's not a threat. So it's not like it's displacing skills, and we just have to find a way to work with tech. But also tech is advanced now. I mean, we know about AI and cooperative tools, but I just think that in the world of work, there's always going to be a human element. Whether you're in mining, pharmaceuticals, in education, there's always, because machines can't be intuitive, can't be creative, and can't build relationships. So I just think that it all comes down to accelerating human performance, ultimately business performance. Because once you leverage the tools that are technology-based, and then people can focus on the things that are creative as well as strategic.
Do you want to comment or add to that?
Yes, I have a slightly different opinion. I agree with you, strategy comes first. And strategy are executed with both of those roles are enabling roles. So HR was always enabling, or people was always enabling, and tech is enabling. I believe today they're both the chicken and the egg. So they should be on equal foot. Because if you design the technology that's going to enable your strategy or your objectives of your business, you have to design it in a way that the people are going to use it. And that's where we sometimes get the disconnect. We design it and it's not easy for the people to adapt. It's not easy, and you made a good point, develop and then get the people developed. I think the journey must be together. Because if it's not, there's not the collaboration and fear steps in. Because we're scared of technology, because there's this buzz going around that technology is going to take over jobs. And yes, there's some jobs that's going to be augmented. But if you do it, that technology is being developed for the people, because it is the people that's going to use it. It's a journey together, chicken and egg together.
So my initial thought when you asked that question was, I actually don't know. But to the point that I think that technology and people have to collaborate and have to work together. So to the point that yes, technology needs to be designed, but it's got to be designed in the manner to your point of view that you must be able to use it. And together they are the enablers of the strategy. So I'm quite right as well that they co-workers.
I like that concept of them being co-workers, because I had the same discussion with someone, and in fact, I was polar, I was like tech, and they were like people. So it's interesting to hear that they're actually there on equal footing and that they are co-workers. But I want to now talk about technology adoption, because I think, Antoinette, you brought it in. So I just want to say, what are the human factors that you influence technology adoption, and how can organizations address this?
Yes. So I think it's a process, and it's definitely the change process. And it starts with leadership. Simple things, communication, making sure that it's open communication. I mentioned before, technology is always a fear factor. Now, if it is silently being done in the corner and then introduced to the people, of course I'm going to fear it. So I think the first thing is the leadership involvement, because people are looking up to leaders. They want to aspire to be leaders. So if the leadership are brought in and the communication around why are we going on this journey links back to the business objectives, it doesn't feel like a big change. Our objectives was going this way, this is enabling us to get there faster, or whatever that communication is. And then constant communication and also collaboration. So hearing from the people how they're feeling about it, but not just hearing, giving feedback. Honestly making that collaboration journey successful, and then hearing from them what is the skills they think they would need if we go on this journey. Because sometimes it's also, we think you need the skills, go on this training. Let's talk about what is it that you think you need and develop that development journey according to what they want. And of course there's needs, but according to what they want, making it a full buy-in process. And then the one thing that we almost forget is the rewards and the celebrating successes. So make sure that the journey has got short success periods that they can celebrate continuously. I think the winning digital transformation with people is absolutely collaboration.
I like that. Now, Puma, on technology adoption, what are those human factors you influence?
I think the big one for me is the organizational culture, right? There are companies that embrace change, And I mean, it could be a change in strategy, and they could be innovators, etc. Right? So culture is a big issue. And then the other thing that I see is also the employment tenure of the staff. So if you have a company where the average staff member has been there for 15 plus years, they tend to hold an opinion that, this works. Let's not rock the boat. The system has been there and literally people can do things with their eyes closed. And I think for me, those are the two big obstacles that affect adoption of, digital transformation. Because the culture where people may be fearful, and maybe change is not embraced as readily and as easily, as well as the tenure of employees who are so accustomed to doing things a certain way, where anything that disrupts the routine is perceived as a threat, and then you have low adoption.
In your experience, what are some of the strategies that some of these organizations who are facing these challenges can adopt to try and increase their adoption?
Yeah, there will always be fear. Remember, people don't fear change, they just fear the sense of loss. So if they fear, if they foresee a loss of authority, a loss of control, a loss of prestige on this stage, they're not going to change. But as soon as you show them what's in it for them and how their work is going to improve and how their time allocation is going to be better, they're never going to climb on a way of change. I always tell my customers, whether you're implementing tech, new processes or new ways of working, explain to the worker how their work is going to change once the change is being implemented. So tech is not really scary. People are stuck in the legacy ways of controlling processes manually because they feel like they're in control. As soon as tech comes in, they feel that the loss of that control. So all you have to do is that, in fact, if you give up 20% of your time to tech, you can use that time to think, plan, and strategize, and be creative. Once you show that to the employee, perhaps they can adopt the change. But I don't think as leaders we are good to do that. We are not good to show employees what's in it for them and how their work is going to change. Particularly around, I was speaking to other clients yesterday, they said they're always busy, and I found that 60% of what they're doing is low value work. It's meetings, low value work, and low impact work. And again, because they don't want to take stuff that's transactional to the machines so that they can do the work that requires thinking, being creative. The machines can't do those things. So once you show what's in it for them and you show the benefits to them as opposed to the organization, you have a chance of getting them to change.
So besides showing employees what's in it, what are other strategies to try and increase technology adoption during the digital environment?
There's also the very practical things like showcasing what the technology is, actually even to play with the more project management type of things, my product diagrams around it. It's giving them a chance to play with it. It's also offering opportunities to be upskilled around that. The other sort of strategy one can use, which goes hand in hand with change, with really introducing a change or technological change, is that there's inevitably an impact on process and how things get done and perhaps policy. Getting the individuals who use the technology to help review those policies and those processes, how does this help us to be better? How do we manage this process? So, it's easier for us. We understand it. It makes sense. Those are some of the things that
I like that. Another thing that I've seen is using, if we talk about the reward you talked about, I tend to find that if the benefit is linked to monetary value, then the change, I need to change, otherwise I will get a bad difference. Then I won't get number tend to find those strategies because it's affecting one's pocket. So you will find that, oh, you need to use this new tool, you're gonna check if you're gonna use it, and you might find you might even put it in someone's performance review. I almost feel like those ones, whenever it hits the pocket, you find that people will focus on that, and then you might find the increase in adoption.
I want to go to Stimbiso's point on leaders are not good at showing the benefit, or communicating the benefit, even maybe to Antonette's point, we talked about putting good feedback mechanisms and constantly communicating, right? So I want to ask, how should leadership's roles evolve to support the digital transformation?
So number one, I think if we assume that the leaders themselves are not intimidated, right? Because it takes them leading by examples, right? And what I think needs to change is leaders are also, they like doing things predictably, right? And what you'll find with digital transformation is new opportunities come up. Different business problems arise, and leaders actually need to be looking, to what's next. Because depending on the tool that you use, you will have different problems. And it doesn't mean problems go away or, opportunities disappear altogether. There's always room to create new roles. There's room to also create new skills within that team. So if you automate something, what happens to the free capacity? What is the value proposition you can give back to the business? And you actually need more strategic thinkers in terms of line leaders who are not just looking at the work output, which says, 5 transactions a day, but then they also need to consider the people, process, and impact of it and say, oh, now that I'm saving 10% of my workday, as Tembiso mentioned, what can I use this 20% time for that adds value to customers, shareholders, etc.?
I like the one before, like we need leaders to lead by example, use the tools that they actually say.
I actually want to add that to her because she's got a point. And I was talking to a group of executives the other day that they think that they are immune to transformation themselves. Especially when leaders have been around for a long time, they just think they're just going to gravitate to slides to the future. So when you talk upskilling and reskilling, they look downwards. They say, no, the employees must get it right. But what about leaders? Are they really preparing themselves to embrace a very different future? I don't think so. Some are actually, it's just that the boards and the executives are not bold enough to say, listen, you are not part of our future, because to train those leaders, you're probably going to spend a lot of money, which is going to take long.
Yeah.
But the boards are not bold enough to say, you've been here 25 years, and the times have shifted. And by the way, we need you to be tech-savvy and to like using tech. But no one's measuring. They just think it's going to be someone else, but not the leaders themselves. So how do you embrace change as a leader if you don't like tech yourself?
Now the interesting thing on the boards themselves are not tech-savvy.
Right.
In the average age on the board is what said.
Yeah, and I think what you said was so important. Change needs to be led.
Yeah.
And change needs to be led by the leaders. So they really need to embrace it. I love what you said earlier when you said they're not really fearful, they're scared of losing the control. And who can empower the team the best? The leader. But the leader must also be vulnerable. They must say, guys, I'm at the same place as you. I'm also scared, or I don't know, they need to teach me also what not to do. So I think that's a skill that needs to come through a little bit later on leadership, is that vulnerability, so that the people see we're in this together. I feel the way you feel, and then the second one is they're the ones that can empower the team to embrace it, but they need to embrace it first.
Absolutely. And they to get there, I think they themselves was
look at the entire chain of technology that is being introduced and say, okay, what does this actually mean for me and my team? They need to sort of really break that down and have that understanding so that it can be done. It can be available to the team. So, okay, this is how I understand it, or this is how it might impact. Let's talk about this. What do you think about that? And I think that that's really critical. If they don't understand the results, they are able to answer
They
those
must be
questions.
so ready to learn it. Yeah.
Exactly. And absolutely open to learning themselves.
And we keep on talking that digital transformation is the future, or digital transformation is coming. It's here. The future is here. And the leaders that's not going to embrace it, the businesses are going to be left behind. Because this is where the world's going.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing the digital transformation plateauing is because I think the cultures we have doesn't allow leaders to be vulnerable. You know, we have to have leaders. Leaders are supposed to be seen as always in control, always knowing. You know, that's the kind of leadership that I'm seeing in our landscape, especially in an African context where there's a chiefdom, it's chief, and it's, you know, he knows it all, fearless leader, and so it's very difficult to be vulnerable in such an environment. So I like the culture.
That is so crazy, because if they just think about it, it is scary to think that this leader knows everything. I would connect with the leader a lot better if I know he also makes faults. He also has disasters in his life, because then I can connect on a human level. So that persona is created by leaders. It's not created by the people, because the people actually want someone that's adaptable, that I can open to and that I can relate to a little bit better.
You know, if I may just add a point, I think when it comes to digital transformation initiatives, there's always the us and them, right? There is the distinction between those requesting the change. So typically the people in tech blame the people in business for making the request, right? And then the people in business blame the people in tech for giving them the results and the solution. And there's always that us and them. And I think part of the problem with the adoption, especially on the continent then, is that we do not look at joint ownership. You know, if you talk to people who work for multinationals, you will hear they all literally will read to you the same brochure. You know, the people who work for Microsoft, they will tell you about Teams and the benefits of Teams, and they will own it. You know, but on the continent, we still like to say, oh, this is being introduced by SMX. We personalize things, and eventually, as you mentioned, you know, there's the chiefdom. You know, this was in so-and-so's era, and it didn't work, and they wasted the company's money. But if we consider that all initiatives are for the people, working for an organization or government for that matter, we will probably maybe achieve better results. Because these projects are not cheap. You're looking at a few $100 million to implement a successful project, especially depending on the scale of the organization. So a lot of it, benefits have not been realized. And the question is, do we want to continue doing more of the same?
Yeah, especially in 22 or in 2020, there's a frenzy on cloud. There was a frenzy on cloud solutions. And I used to say to my clients, it's like taking a very fancy solution and retrofitting it on top of a lousy process. So if you can't get the basics right, the fundamentals around webflow, you know, if I shift this bottle from here to here, there are handoffs. So if the processes that are manual or semi-manual are not optimized, then you can take any solution. A client of mine, similar to what Yankon was saying, 22,000 people, S4HANA, over 18 months, 400 million rand. You will ask, how robust are your processes? And they just think tech is going to solve all the problems. And it's an illusion to think that just by adopting a tech or cloud solution, all stones in the shoes would be removed. So I just say that people that are thinking about digital transformation as a tech solution, they must just optimize first. Optimize what we have. Make sure that the workflow manually works before you automate or before you adopt a cloud solution, because it's just a waste of money if your processes are not
Maybe if, on top of the processes, sometimes it can also be infrastructure. For example, I won't mention the company. They adopted a technology solution from America, and when it's being tested in America, it's tested on Mozilla, and when you watch the demos and the technology worked. Now it came into South Africa, and the network speed. At that time, there was no cloud, so we were reliant on VMs and hardware, and the VMs were not as strong, and the network speed was not great. So what ended up happening was the user experience was terrible. Was just to open up a report, it would lag. So the user experience was horrible. Yet, when you watch the demos, when it's being done in America, brilliant,
conditions.
beautiful, and it's amazing. But that's because their underlying infrastructure was good. Now you take this thing and you bring it now into our environment. And at that time, we didn't have fiber. There was not a lot of fiber. It was telephone line at that time. So just the whole user experience took it away to a point where the leadership were like, don't want to use this tool. This tool is not working. Take it out. And it was just because they had a bad experience of this. So sometimes, as much as we need to optimize our processes, our infrastructure, we need to be looked at. And not given a budget to go and get SAP.
If you've worked in enough technology projects, right, you would know that you'll need to understand the spec. The Americans, when they sell to you, they will tell you that for this to run optimally, you need to run it on this type of platform, right? And I suppose maybe it's formal, where people want to also be seen with the cool kids, and then they want to get the latest product, and then they do not have the foundational spec. And that is also where you do a lot of, whether it's in our healthcare or in the schooling systems where everybody wants to go digital. We may not have the underlying capabilities to run solutions. Technology doesn't talk back and say, I'm sorry, I can't do that, or whatever, or don't buy me. And salespeople will convince you that everything works, and it does. There's client references, there's POCs, they'll even fly you to wherever in the States, and you will see it at its prime. And unfortunately, some of our decision makers, which talks to the leadership that we highlighted, our decision makers do not make the best decisions for the organization. And that is now where we're sitting back and saying, but this tech revolution that was supposed to make us a digital enterprise isn't working.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because if the business case is not strong enough, and all I say, is it defensible, is it explainable? A client of ours, when I was in Deloitte, was implementing Workday, and then a new CEO came, the project is mid-flight. New CEO comes in month number 9, and he says, why are we doing this? And HR, just do what you have always done. And then he carried the project. And again, nobody could stand in front of him and explain and why this investment. Because the business case that lives in a book or in a piece of paper is not enough. You do need a sponsor of the project that understands the benefits, the business case, and the motivation to explain it, because CEOs will change. These projects are long. S/4HANA usually takes 18 to 24 months, as an example. So and CEOs and leaders can change. If the sponsor of that project is not strong enough to explain it, defend it, and explain the investment, then it looks
I mean, I think that's a big point on the adoption as well. If we don't have the business case and we don't know the benefit, how do we then explain to the employees, this is the benefit and this is the enhancements it's bringing in your world, and this is how it can be powered to have more headspace, because 20% is now going to be taken by the machine. So if we don't have that, adoption won't happen later as well. When you were talking, I also thought it's not only the infrastructure, it's that experience as well. We don't do it, and that's why the chicken and egg is the same thing. We have to, whatever we do, we must make sure that the experience for the employees that's going to use that system is also great. And ticking all the boxes through a proper business process and a business plan process.
Yeah, I mean, on that experience, I'm the first one to say it is amazing when it works. You know, there may be many reasons why it doesn't work. But the unfortunate part about it is that the impacts that you can really frustrate and you can say things that it's not working, and then you lost the individual.
Yeah.
So it's really important that before you do go live, then you click the on button, that you've done the tests, you've had people play with it and experience it and tell you, oh, but this doesn't feel right, or this doesn't make sense, or there's a glitch here, and get all of those, as many of those little gremlins out of the way, so that when you actually go live, it's as seamless as it can be. That's notwithstanding, of course, once it's gone live, you've got to do those post-implementation checks, but not just on the system itself, but with the people and the user experience, and ask them, okay, now that you've gone live, how are you experiencing it? What's missing? Is there anything you need to months, or whatever the case may be. It's so important. Always assess how we use it.
Also switch off, the internet. Also switch off the hot stuff. Most of my clients say, well, we'll run the systems parallel. Just in case. Why did you do it? What's the point? So that's why it's not go live. You come here. So when you run two systems in parallel, human beings will tend to switch to the old way of doing this because they can't navigate this new territory. So most clients say, well, we'll run in parallel for 3 months. If you believe in the solution and you've done the training, you've done the UAT, you've done the SIT, you've done it well, why keep the old system? Switch it off.
I worked on a project where systems were running parallel, and I eventually said, but at what point do we switch to the other system? Because we're not going to get to the point where the new system is working. Like you have to switch it off. There's no point.
People have habits, and when there's something uncomfortable, I switch to my old habit. Same with the system. And I think what you said earlier about the testing, and we go live and then there's a gremlin or two, it happens. But that's again a complication before the time. Guys, transparently, we're going to go live, there's going to be gremlins. Here's a case study of another company that did it. These are the gremlins. We looked to see that we're not going to have those ones, but we might have others. Because sometimes it's such a big promise, and we're going to have this amazing experience, and then we don't. Yeah, and that's not how you must sell the system into the business at all.
I think it's also important to be sensible and practical, right? There will always be a snack list. Even if you buy a new house, one of the snacks with a leaking roof, you will experience it only when summer rains come through. That could be 12 months into, living in a new house. And I think with these digital transformation projects, there's only so many, tests you can do. There will always be snacks that you encounter once you need to process, whether it's a year-end, whether it's a month-end, or some close-offs, or special processes that need to run. And I think because people are always, it's always crunch time. Month-end is usually restricted to X number of days, and nobody wants to have a painful month-end. So people are reluctant if they've had a bad experience before. I think what leaders need to do, that's something else that we touched on, is that you need to have an open mind to say, what if month-end doesn't work smoothly? And then the leader, instead of putting pressure on the staff, then they go and renegotiate timelines. To afford the staff a period to do the work, because then you are putting taking the foot off and allowing people to embrace and learn how the new system handles a critical business process. And then the next time it will be slightly better. But our leaders, what do? Month-end is a 3-day process, you better have it done. I don't care, So that's also another leadership approach that we need, where leaders actually renegotiate certain things to allow the technology to work before starting to demand a rollback.
It's all about driving change because they outsource change to HR.
Yes.
And then after go live, they'll say, well, if there's a snag, they go to HR or go to the super user or go to training people. But instead, because they work with people all the time, so if they're equipped with tools and skills to lead change and drive change, they should proactively do it. But usually they'll just call some trainer or a consultant and say, go to HR come and train us. And
Yes.
I didn't say this. Very deep comment. But I always say that whether it's tech change or any other kind of change, HR's job is to equip leaders with the tools, skills to manage change. Only when they get stuck, they should go there. But especially for tech, they just say, listen, you've been trained, go and do it. But like Antoinette is saying, if they get stuck, where do they go? They don't go to the leader, they go to the training center or HR.
What I'm also picking up from this discussion from all of you is that there's a fear of failure. Sometimes when we get to a pressure point, we've spent millions, and we realize there's no way this project will fail. And that's when we see certain behaviors. I think that is also driven by a fear of failure. But what's your sense on failure? When do we know when to put the plan and say, you know what, guys, maybe we need to readjust?
I think I wanted to ask that. So, what is failure? Because going live with a system that doesn't work and doesn't get adopted immediately is not a failure. It's just a slow change process, maybe a wrong change process. But I believe in projects, big projects like that, there should be a list right from the beginning. I'm honestly very, very prone to communication. So communication is everything, but that means we need to have a list to say at what point, what would failure mean? And then at go live, when there's reference, it's not failure. That will also take away the fear from the people. Because if the leader has got the approach that this can't fail and I'm scared of the failure, everyone else is fearful. So everyone is scared to make a mistake, and we do make mistakes. So what happens if I'm fearful to make a mistake? I don't say when I make a mistake. And that creates a bigger problem and a bigger problem. So I think how to solve that is from the beginning say at what point, what would failure look like? And do we pull the plug if the failure is amber? Or do we only pull it when the failure is red? Or do we make a choice there? Are we going to go red or are we going to take that failure into green? But it is absolutely a process.
Because she was saying if the roof is making, empower people to highlight issues as they arise. Because if they hide them because they're scared, and then they just get bigger and bigger, and then it creates a catastrophe. So I like the example that she said. So as you make the snake, allow people to make that snake list and take it to the right platform and get it fixed. Because when the roof is leaking, you move out of your house and fix it. Fix it. You're not gonna sell and say, I'm selling this house as a snake. But you've got the power to go to the developer or the seller and say, listen, this snake list, this is it, go come and fix it. And sometimes to the point, we don't empower employees and give them the right to raise issues, and then they sweep it under the carpet and then they just get bigger.
And that is true, because what we picked up with some of our clients is the leader will say, no, it's okay to fail, come with the snag list. But when you start going down, because that fear of failure is so entrenched in an organization, hates us
mistake.
seeing someone getting fired because they made a
Because they
mistake
made a mistake.
in this line of work. And if you find they'll keep quiet or they'll hide or they'll be like, oh, I'm sorry, I tried to fix it, but I couldn't, but now it's a bit too late. And I think it does start with leadership to create a psychologically safe environment for people to say, you know what, I made a mistake.
So a point I want to also maybe share is that we mentioned earlier that these projects are really, really big ticket projects. They are multi-year. I'm yet to hear of a project that was delivered within the business case timeframe. So it's already overdue by the time it goes live. So everybody's been holding their breath. And behind closed doors, there's been tough conversations had. Right? And then, everybody's now, should you fail? Should this thing fail? And you are already going live with the thing that says, you know what, you are already 50 million over budget. And this thing is 2 years in the making. And it's about time that we take it live, because there's too many eyes on it. And I think that fear of failure also stems from the history of how we deliver these initiatives. Because there's a CEO that has to answer to the board, there's executives that have to, also account, and maybe there's bonuses at stake, And if you also consider that the delivery of any initiative, whether it's a business or a technology project, there's the time element, the cost, and the quality. Imagine if you are red on all of those things, It's not a pretty picture, and that is why there is, this big fear that we see. And maybe now with the low adoption, it could be because a lot of projects have failed by definition.
Yes.
The time, the cost, and the quality has not met the client's expectations.
And I don't think it's the project, I think it's the culture. Everything you speak about is culture. I know of a project, a SAP implementation, that was on time, in budget, with no business disruption. Believe it or not. And it wasn't now after COVID, it was before COVID. And it was, the business had a performance culture and not an ugly competitive performance culture. They were competing with each other. So it was the culture in that business that made sure that everyone's on board, everyone. Did they work late? Was there nights that they had to stay at the office? Yes, they did. But they did it in time and in budget. I know that there was big celebrations about that. So it can be done, but it depends on the culture.
I'm going to have that culture so that if anyone out there is listening, they can try and identify what that high performance culture that made a big implementation like that get delivered successfully. If you were maybe to characterize it to 3 things, what was that culture?
So the culture was really, from management down, driving results to people. So that was their slogan, and they drive results to people. And there was a big emphasis on developing people and objectives. So their KPIs, their performance management was split like that. You were awarded for developing others, and you were awarded for meeting your objectives. And that drove that whole culture of delivering to the others. So when there was an objective and we're going to stay late, the managers were there. They had no input, they could do nothing, but they were there, just looking at the people. But it was that driving that result to others. So I think that's the first culture. It's management really embracing developing other people. The other one is having a culture of it's okay to fail, but let's fail forward. Let's not fail and then hide it and try to fix it. This is the failure, make that decision. Is it a red failure? Is it a green failure? And let's fail forward. What is the next step and what are we going to do next? And that also goes into the performance, so that people know that I do get rewarded. In the company that I spoke about, the rewards were great. You worked hard, and you were rewarded for your work.
I mean, it's so important that we have a group of people working on the shared objective. They all work in the same place. They all know they all have a role to contribute. And to your point earlier about KPIs and KPIs, you find those seem to be adopted quicker. I always advocate for that if there is a fundamental change, now someone's going to work with it, and a slight change, have a look at those KPIs and KPIs and say, how does this need to change so that we're driving the right behavior towards using that technology, the adoption of the technology. It's also particularly important, at least I really advocate for getting if you are measuring the outcome and output. It's not just, okay, I used the technology today. What did using the technology give you? What did you achieve with that?
So an example I would like to share, we had a LMS project, learning management system, right? And I think what made that project a success, first of all, was that there was a strong sponsor. She believed in the project, she believed in the strategy, and she pushed everybody to realize those benefits. Right? It was never, a project that was a tech project or whatever. It was her project that she drove. And because there was, I think a team of administrators, maybe a team of 15 or so, who were, used to doing the administration around learning requests, processing, and. While the technology project was in flight, the staff who did learning management, learning and development, they were also taken on a journey, to say, what will happen to you when the system ends? How will your role change? And they were groomed and developed to get to a level where they then, instead of being learning administrators, they became learning partners, which is a completely different, it's still in the same domain, but it's an elevated level of delivering service to your customers. They were taught, customer skills and how to look at your skills development strategies, etc., knowing that the tool to equip them is in the pipeline, and as soon as it switched on, they were then the advocates because admin was never their portion. They were ready to take on better roles that gave them, better visibility across the business. So sponsorship is a really big thing.
It's a very good point. But also, most organizations don't measure business performance before and after. So a lot of people that I talk, customers that I talk to, implementing change, I would ask, what do you foresee? How is business performance going to shift, and by how much? Investing 180 million rand in 24 months, what do you hope to see around performance? And they will never tell you. Because they haven't bothered to even imagine. I just think that if tech is not going to help humans perform better, then ultimately the organization, what are you doing it for? Mm-hmm. It's just a nice thing to have because everybody's doing it. Yes. So if you can't imagine, you're going to live, and also the bottom line. Because like she said, if people are more engaged, they're doing the right things, and they're creating time to think, plan, and imagine the future. And the machines are doing what they're doing. And you can calculate how business performance is going to shift. But they just don't do it. The same client I spoke about earlier, after they go live, I said, okay, now how is business performance now? They couldn't tell us. They said, well, everyone is using the tool. But I'm saying, how is the tool helping them perform better and do the right things? They couldn't tell us.
Sometimes that improvement in performance is not always realized immediately.
Of course.
But understand what it potentially
So this is working towards.
But that's something I have picked up, especially when we scrub the business cases, just to see how strong this business case is before we start implementing. And usually the ROI is normally it's not really calculated enough to say that after implementation we're gonna come back and look to say this is how much we thought we would calculate, how we getting this, and we're gonna measure this over 2 years. That performance management measurement, I don't see strong.
They just just hoping it's going to be better, everything's going to be better.
And it's normally intangible benefits that are typically
I was about to say though, maybe sometimes one of the most important ROIs is the performance of the individuals in
It's
the
intrinsic.
And if the role, if an individual role has become strategic and less administrative, or the technology has made such a change to themselves that it actually they are allowed to perform better, they manage to achieve their profitability and ultimately. And that's equally important to process.
Yes. So if I may, we need to take a step back and assess what do organizations measure today, right? A lot of the times they measure revenue, which is just their sales. And if they happen to have a call center, then they'll measure call center performance and turnaround times. And maybe to a certain extent, customer experience through the surveys, right? If you have a technology project, which is intended to optimize finance, for example, the people management in finance is not as robust as they do in the call centers, you see. And that is why we cannot come up with a ROI. We want to do a S4 project, but it's finance, it's SAP finance. How do we measure the staff and finance's performance? We just want a successful month end, a successful year end or quarter end. That's it, So the metrics that are in place to measure success of these projects, if it's a digital project for the call centers, it's easy. But if you're looking at finance, maybe HR and all other, functions, marketing is stepping up because marketing with the digital engagement, etc., they're now collecting metrics that are tangible. They're collecting leads, etc., etc. Now that is something that businesses are starting to measure. But everywhere else across the organization, you can't monitor legal, but maybe you need an end-to-end contract management solution. And it requires a big investment. How then do you measure and report to say my legal is effective since I went digital?
I'm going to give you a really core technologies are it's very easy to calculate productivity.
It's not. I just wanted to say, so productivity and efficiency, it's not easy for the layman to calculate, but you can. And in finance, if they go digital and they automate, there is a massive productive calculation and efficiency. They do things faster. Their days drastically reduce. So there is stuff. The legal one is difficult. I think it's only time and motion on that one. But there is calculations. But you're right. They normally don't do that because it's easy to calculate the other ones. It's more difficult to calculate productivity. The big debate about working at home and coming back to the office, and it was productive, and now that COVID's not here, we're not scared to go out, so we're not productive anymore. We take chances. It was productive then, it's productive now. We do things faster in a shorter time.
That's why you must have the day in a life off before the tech, and the day in a life off after the tech. Because if you can't show the individual how your typical day, week is going to look like after go live, you've lost that individual. Because they're going to ask, what's in it for me? And again, how is my work, the workload, the work and the type of work going to change? If 50% of my time I'm doing transactions, I'm a financial controller, I'm processing invoices. Once the tech is there, the machine will process invoices. Then I can spend my time either brainstorming, planning, or doing creative work, which humans like to do anyway. But if you can't, as a leader, you can't show that to the individual. Say, your day, today, 50% of your time is transactional. After go live, only 5% of your day will be transactional. And then to our inner discussion, how are you offloading the 45%? So what am I going to do with that 45% now that it's available? Now you can shift people to do stuff that's interesting, that's stretching, that's meaningful, that's challenging. But we don't do that. We just say,
It's space to innovate.
Exactly.
I mean,
You
how
can
many
do-
businesses today innovate?
exactly.
Because there's no time.
How many of people that are in a job today lock their calendars to think and to plan? Because they're busy.
Yeah.
And they're doing low value work, not high value work.
Exactly.
I just want to say, the socials are buzzing. There are 10 questions.
Yes.
It's not time for tea.
So I'm going to read them now. So how can organizations effectively manage resistance to change among employees during a digital transformation?
No resistance to change. Like I said, people fear loss. So they don't fear change itself. And again, it's very, for me as a change advisor, I just say, show people what's in it for them, be crisp about it, and be consistent about it, and then you don't have to convince them to change. And show them what they stand to gain versus what they stand to lose. And if the scale this side is high, they will move. But if they don't, they cannot visualize what they stand to gain. To her point, not extrinsically through bonuses and performance rewards, but intrinsically. So how is my well-being going to shift when I've got time to relax and think? So how's my mental health going to improve now that I'm not transactional? So if you can't help them imagine what they stand to gain versus what they stand to lose in terms of control, authority, and command, then they're not gonna. They will do it when you're watching as a leader, but once you turn away, they will stop. For me, I just say, show them what's in it for them, and be practical, and let them imagine it and smell it, almost feel and smell it. And other than that, you do.
And you have to on the really bring them along the journey, show them their benefits. So yeah, I would like to ask you, in what ways can leadership play a critical role in driving successful digital transformation?
So to my earlier point, I think first of all, the leadership or the leader or leaders involved in the digital transformation must first understand what it is they really want into the organization, what it would mean for their team, how it would potentially change how things get done, how things that work, those processes. I think they must understand also from a skills perspective what does that mean in terms of skills required. Do they need to do physical upskilling? Do they need to, and this is besides making sure people get trained in the technology and things like that. I think what's more important is that they need to be available to these changes. And what do I mean by that? I mean, be open to being asked those uncomfortable questions. Sometimes somebody just wants to know what it means for my job. And you may not be able to answer that question at that point in time. But say, we're turning to this, we're working through this, we're looking at what the impact is. And often it's not about, and sometimes there are restructures that come with it, changes in roles, adaptations in roles. But it's not about saying to someone, oh, your job is impacted, it's about how is this going to improve our job. And in that being though, answering those questions, it's also about doing those regular check-ins with them. I'm not talking about when they're having their monthly meeting and having it as a gender point only, but it's also just sort of being aware of what's going on in the team and deciding whether or not you need to have a one-on-one with someone because they seem judgy about what's going on, or you actually create a team discussion and it can be around multiple, it doesn't have to be important. So those are some of the things I think leaders could.
I want to dive into future of work. And Nyankoma, how do you envision the future of work in the context of digital transformation in Africa?
I think the future of work is the same as the history of work, right? If you maybe just remember, why are organizations in business? You know, in business to make money. And ultimately, your human capital must contribute towards helping you make money, right? Do you need the people to be co-located? Do you need the people to work remotely? Do you have the technology to make it effective to achieve the ultimate goal? So for me, I see it as it's the same thing. There is no future of work without a history of work. Ultimately, people need to be empowered to organize themselves in a way that best works for the organization. So what we're currently seeing is that in projects, the new way of delivering projects is that you have a project team that has a product owner, product manager, and those are a lot of the SMEs that do the work in business, the process owners in business, who are active participants in projects day to day. If they see that the techs are going left or getting excited, then they're like, no, but that's not how we do it. Please remember the essence of my work is X. You're automating it, and then you hold each other accountable. So we organizing ourselves different, those same results that we've always done.
Antoinette? So I agree with her. We're in business to make money. That's never going to go away. But in future, my co-worker might be an automated process and not a physical body. The new generation coming in, they have a very different mindset. Us oldest, we're loyal. We were loyal to the business, loyal to the job. They're loyal to themselves. It doesn't mean they're not loyal while they're in the business, but they're there to see what can they get out for themselves and how do they enhance themselves. And that means the future of work, the management skills going to have to change. We're going to have to be a lot more adaptive to understand what is it that they want and how do we manage and how do we get the best results out of both, out of the automated process and the person with not a loyalty connection to the business. They'll leave because they're also not bound to all of the things that we were bound to when we were growing our careers. They're okay to grow a bigger portfolio versus growing up the ladder. So it's a very, very different mindset for leaders and managers, and I believe that we're going to have to bring in empathy. Mental health has become something a lot bigger than what we had it before. It was a no-go zone. We didn't talk about it. Today, people are more open to talk about it, but we also need to have a lot more empathy to understand where you come from. I did a speech just the other day on unconscious biases, and I think the workplace is already changing. But in the future, we're going to have to understand what is those biases that we grew up with. And I'm talking in technology. I mean, I said it when I started. People fear technology. That's a bias. Because technology is an enhancement. Technology is an enabler. Technology is my co-worker. So how do we change the biases of history of work versus just that skill set and mindset of future of work?
Sorry, but I hold a different view, right? I typically caution colleagues against looking at somebody's age and saying, oh my goodness, this is Gen Z, this is Gen X, whatever. And the reason for that is we are, as a collective, from a humanless point of view, nobody tolerates disrespect anymore, right? It's just that we are raising children not to take disrespect, not to take bullying, which usually and historically was characterized as a leadership style. We had a label for it, calling it authoritarian leadership style, right? I do a lot of mentoring at work, and I work with the new entrants in the workplace. They do not want to be disrespected. So that tolerance and commitment it's only as far as you disrespect them, and they will cancel you. So we also need to, that bias that you mentioned. There's a textbook definition that says, oh, these new workers are not loyal, they want to work from home, etc., etc. Number one, they're socially awkward, and they actually enjoy being in the company of others, believe it or not, because they come from smaller families and they have the interactions in the workplace. But they will not tolerate disrespect because they come from homes where they were asked, do you want to have water or tea? You know? I mean, no longer are children just being told, oh, make me tea, grab that remote for me, because they will tell you. Right? So I think what we also struggle with in the workplace is that there are things that happen in our homes. There is a way that we are raising our children today, but then when we get them into the workplace, we perceive that they are these aliens. You know, you see Mr. Kumalo's child and you think, yeah, this one I will deal with them. But in their home, this person is respected and cared for and boundaries are set, etc., etc. In fact, there's now a new policy called the anti-bullying harassment policy in the workplace. Gaslighting is defined as a form of harassment. So these kids understand these policies completely. And employers need to realize they are being cancelled. It's not the youngster that is not loyal, it is the youngster choosing themselves, and they will cancel you. You know, and you will fail to attract talent if you still label them as Gen, you know, fill in the thing. You know?
But the leaders need to change. The skill set that leaders has, or the mindset that leaders has, they need to adopt these.
Yes, leaders are
But
parents.
they also influence the youngsters coming in, or influence the other workforce. They are the bigger percentage of the workforce coming in. They're influencing the others to also stand up for themselves, to also not want to be bullied or disrespected. But the leaders need to not have to think, I'm going to deal with you, because that's what they do with children at home. They're not going to deal with them at work because they need to be adaptive to what is it that they really want.
The question is who's measuring if the leaders are doing that? And who's measuring if the leaders have got the skill, the attitude, and the desire to even shift their management styles? And I always say manage work and lead people, inspire, motivate. Unfortunately, we just think just because you've been a leader or a manager, you will wing it, you will find a way to adjust. And you're not bold enough to say, we're going to give you a chance and give you the skill to adjust. And when that time comes and we have not, it's a different thing that we talk to you about. Unfortunately, we don't do that.
I'll answer politically correct up to whether there's more consultants to help you.
We have 10 minutes remaining, and I would just like for all of you to end by saying what would your contribution be to increase the trajectory of digital transformation? Because I always feel like we need to be the change we want to see. And if we are coming on platforms like this where we're trying to increase or change the narrative of digital transformation, what's our
I think, you know, as somebody that is in the workplace, right, it's important to reflect and recognize, first of all, you know, that you are not an island, right? There's things that happen in our world today, right? We watch, we stream TV shows, you know. Everybody in the house has a tablet or a cell phone or something like that. And those same courtesies that we extend out in the world, we need to now bring that into the workplace, right? We need to understand, you know, somebody can fail. You know, you have somebody who's not run their updates on the iPad and then it stops working, or WhatsApp hasn't been updated, about the technology. It's a way of work, and maybe processes no longer serve us today. We don't no longer need to hop and skip before we switch on the kettle. So I think that's most important. And I mean, I certainly commit to also embracing new ideas. Recognize that people don't see things the way that I do, and allow room, hold space, and internally hold space for other views and opinions that are different to mine. Diversity of focus.
Love that. Yeah, what would your contribution be to try and increase or take that narrative to increase the digital
And technology is changing rapidly all the time, and there's different solutions to the same problem. They all carry something. Make the decision to look at the technology to help solve the problem, or improve a process, productivity, whatever it is spend the time to actually understand what that technology will do. And I think when you make the decision, it's have the right people in the room to help you unpack it, understand, see the impact, whether that's on people or process or even systems. You're bringing a technology that needs to be integrated, and then what does that do to the rest of the operation? And so make sure you have the right people in the room, and include them in that. It's really HR representative from the get-go. So yeah, I think on a personal standpoint is when having those conversations with clients, whoever it is, just understand first, and then make sure it's the best decision you can make at the time of the information, and plan around that.
I just wish I could teach my clients two things. That first off, before you embark on a big digital journey, sweat your asset first. Make sure that you get maximum juice out of your ecosystem before you embark on a major digital transformation project. Number two, explain how your world of work is going to look like after that implementation. If you can't explain it, and if the shift is only 2%, but you're spending so much, and it doesn't, and I just wish they could ask consultants to help them write those business cases. Or memos, or I don't even know. Because sometimes we read these memos and RFPs and business cases, and we can't find the thinking around what is shifting, around people, around well-being, and especially the off-the-field stuff, not the transactional stuff. So how is the DNA, the culture of this workforce going to look like? And what is the size of the workforce going to look like after implementation? What is the skill set? So you look at the skill base now and say, the skill base tomorrow is going to look like this. And if those two are not really compared, then why would people want to change? I just wish those two things would be in place before they start.
Love that. Annette, what is your contribution?
So I think I was lucky in my career. I had very good technology partners. So I was in business and they were in tech, and we always connected well. I used to have a saying, if tech can't do it, then we can't. And so I always walked the journey with tech. And today I consult and I'm doing strategy, culture, purpose, and engagement. And I wouldn't be true to myself if I don't bring technology. So I've developed a homegrown local system for employee engagement. Very different, very agile, very engaging to give the experience for the employee no matter where you are. I believe everyone wakes up in the morning, and maybe it's just me, then I apologize. And the first thing that you do is grab a phone and go to the toilet. So start So either you start your employee engagement at that minute. That's what the tool does. So my commitment is always to look for ways to engage anyone, no matter where they are, digitally, because I believe that's going to be the future.
Sounds good.
I love that. I just want to end by saying what my contribution would be. And I am here to just help you if you don't understand or don't know where to start with the digital transformation journey. More than welcome to call me and help you with that. We have developed a digital maturity assessment with African companies, African leaders, African data. Don't need go ex big fours and Cisco and Dell and all that. It's developed by a local company for Africans by Africans, benchmarked with African companies. So if you want to assess your digital transformation, you can always contact us and we can help. Other than that, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you, my panelists. I really enjoyed the conversations. I don't think it's going to end here. We should continue connecting and thank you for all the questions that you had. Sorry I couldn't get through to all of